He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. My God. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. This is the reading. Today we'll shine our sermonic spotlight at verse number 4. Even though I walk through the valley, King James Version says, of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, for thou art with me. Today, as the Lord gives me strength and passion, I want to try to preach from this thought: God's guidance in serious times. God's guidance in serious times. Peter Jeffrey writes that Psalm 23 is preeminently a psalm of privilege. Here, David is not praying in this psalm. He's not asking God to do something for him, but rather he is rejoicing in what the Lord has done and continues to do in his life. There are times when it seems that wickedness and godlessness dominates our world. But when those times arise, serious times, when those times prevail, this text shows us that God will guide us in the path that is right. Friends, if you're honest, you cannot deny that we are living in serious times. Divisive and inflammatory jargon that is used from the executive branch of government that has resulted in all kinds of racial tension. These are serious times. Our little girls and young women being raped and sold in sex trafficking schemes, these are serious times. Abortion rates being astronomically high in African American and minority communities, these are some serious times. Political propaganda pitched and poised by media outlets and framed up to ignite negative effects, these are serious times. Voter suppression still in 2021, these are serious times. Biological terrorism in the form of COVID-19 that has statistically taken the lives of those who are ethnically melanated predominantly. These are serious times. The systemic emasculation of masculinity in men. These are serious times. Men in pants tighter than women's pantyhose. These are serious times. Men in blouses and skirts. These are serious times. Men in same-sex sex scenes in TV shows. These are serious times. Friends, we must know and understand that even in serious times, God's guidance is still available. God's guidance is still accessible in times like these. And so then, if we want to know about God's guidance in serious times, we must first consider that God will provide guidance for us in these serious times. Firstly, because God is a competent guide. psalmist David says, make no mistake about it, the Lord is my shepherd. I don't know about you, I don't know about your neighbor, I don't know about your auntie or your uncle or your nephew and your niece and your goddaughter. But as I take inventory of my life and I scroll the road down the canyons of my own existence, he says there's nobody else that's been looking out for me but the Lord. Point. The name that he uses for the Lord is the Hebrew distinction, Jehovah. We know something about the Jehovistic traits of God, that he is Jehovah Jireh, God who provides. He is Jehovah Shalom, God of our peace. He's Jehovah Shammah, the God who is there. He's Jehovah Sidkenu, God our righteousness. He's Jehovah Rohi, God our healer. He's Jehovah Nissi, God our banner, the God who goes before us. But here, David says he's Jehovah Rophi, God my shepherd. The name Jehovah, it means to be the self-existent one, which is to say that he exists, God exists in and of himself. In the language of antiquity, he's God all by himself. He don't need nobody's help. He's the God that carpeted the earth with green grass, that planted a variety of blooming flowers, that hung the sun as a golden medallion, put the moon up so the sun could primp at night, sprinkled the stars like galactic illuminaries on like diamonds on a sheet of black velvet, to the point that the poet got happy and said, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. This is the God that David's talking about. The same God that put the bark in the dog and the hop in the frog. The same God that gave the who to the owl and put the moo in the cow. The same God that made the kangaroo jump and put the funk in the skunk. We're talking about that God. And if you got a God like that, why you can't trust him when times get tough?
Wow, that's good, Doc. Go ahead, Doc. Go ahead.
You can trust that God will get you through serious times because he's a competent guy.
Yeah, there you go.
He was competent in creation. When God articulated, let there be, God activated a mighty move of order, and everything that was not became that it was, and chaos turned into cosmos because he's a competent God. And so the word today, friends, is no matter how chaotic your life may be, it does not compare to the power and the competence of our Almighty God.
Wow.
He's a competent guy.
Go ahead, Doc.
He was competent in creation. But not only that, church, he was competent in situations. God led Adam to Eve, led Abraham on Mount Moriah, led Noah in building the ark. He led Moses and the children of Israel from captivity. He led Daniel in the lion's den. He led the Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace. He led Nehemiah in rebuilding the walls. He led Martin Luther King Jr. in raising awareness about the fight and plight of black people for equality. He led Obama in the White House. He led Trump out the White House. I'm saying he's acquainted with our situations.
Wow, Doc. Go ahead, Doc. Go ahead.
Was competent in creation. Was competent in situations.
Wow.
But here's the third thing, church. Are you interested? Here's the third thing. He was competent in salvation.
Wow.
When the Levitical order of the holiness tradition was not working. When the blood of lambs, rams, bulls, and turtle doves, and beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, hogs, moths, frogs, dogs, chickens, turkeys, you name it. When it wasn't working no more, Paul said God demonstrated his love toward us in that while we were yet sinners,
Go ahead, you ought to go and preach, Doc.
while you were yet at the hole in the wall,
Yeah.
while you were yet at somebody's house you ain't have no business, while you were yet drunk as Cooter Brown, while you were yet smoking more than a chimney, God gave Jesus to die in your place.
Wow. Go ahead, Doc.
Because he knew better than we did that we couldn't save ourselves.
Yeah.
And every now and then I ought to be like that old lady that was in church. Every time the preacher would preach, she would get up from her seat and walk in the middle of the aisle and stand in the middle of the aisle and raise her hands and look back. Every time that the wind of the Holy Ghost would get right, she would get up from her pew and walk out in the aisle and fold her arms and shake her hands and turn. Finally, Reverend got a little prideful and he brought her to the office and said, Mother, listen, I'm about tired of you disrupting my service every time I preach. You pick a certain time to get up while I'm preaching and you walk in the middle of the aisle while I'm preaching and you raise your hands and you fold your arms and you just go to looking back. Why you get up and do that in this world? Well, Pastor, I'm not trying to disrupt service, but every now and then while you're preaching, God gives me a flashback. And when I get up from my pew and I stand up in the aisle, I'm raising my hands in praise. But when I look back, I'm always looking back to see how far the Lord has brought me from. And I wish I had about 9 witnesses up in here that would testify with me, and I'll make 10. That when I look back over my life and I think things over, I can truly say that I'm not what I ought to be. But I thank God that I'm not what I used to be. I don't cuss the way I used to do. I don't walk around the way that I used. My bad attitude ain't the way that it used to be. Why? Because he has made a change in me.
Wow. Go ahead, preach,
I'm
Doc.
almost done. God is a competent God. But not only, church, you trust that God will give us guidance in serious times because he's a competent God.
Yeah.
But here's the second thing. God is a consistent God.
Yeah, there you go, Doc. That's good.
God is a consistent God. Notice in the text, the psalmist says, the Lord is my shepherd.
Yes, sir.
King James Version, I shall not want. That word for shall has a futuristic scope. I shall never. He's looking forward. That's faith talking.
Yeah.
I shall never want. Here it is. King James, I like that rendering because it uses that old English suffix, the ETH. He leadeth me in green pastures. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He is a consistent God. Anytime you see that old English suffix ETH, it is suggestive and synonymous with the Hebrew imperfect mood. The Hebrew imperfect mood suggests a continuous or linear or an ongoing activity. And so the emphasis of what David is saying is that God is always leading me.
Yeah.
God is
That's good,
always making me lie down. God is always the one that restores my soul. Isn't that good news, church? Because sometimes we, just like sheep, can get absorbed and overwhelmed with the troubles of this life. And sometimes we can't see how we're going to make it out. But the good news about it, we got a shepherd that's looking out for us, that when we are obnoxious and anxious and irritated and irritable and don't know how things are going to work, God has a way of making us lie down.
That's good, Doc.
God has a way of leading us in areas that won't frighten us. And get this, he does it consistently. God is a consistent God. And in God's distinction of being a consistent God, God is a liberating leader.
Yeah.
See, what we must understand today, church, is that God is about freedom and not oppression. He freed Joseph from prison, freed Israel from Babylonian and Egyptian captivity, freed David from Goliath, freed Daniel from the lions, and the Hebrew boys from the fiery furnace, Peter while the church was at prayer, Paul and Silas from the Philippian jail at midnight. Why else would Jesus say, whom the Son sets free is free indeed? God ain't about oppression. This ain't about sunlight. This is about church in general. It seems as though many of our churches, we want to be about liberation, but we got oppressive systems in our church. When certain people can't teach it, certain people can't preach it, certain people can't go over here, certain can't go over there. How you gonna preach that he'll set you free when you don't put me in handcuffs? Either he sets me free or he doesn't. Because he's a liberating lead. But not only is he a liberating lead, I'm nearly done. I lost about half the room on that. Hold me up, Holy Ghost. God not only is a liberating lead, but he's a loyal lead. Historical accounts prove it, church, that God has always, in one way or another, led God's people out of positions, problems, and plights that were oppressive. We got a whole African American race that can testify to it. Brought here on slave ships without our permission, but God has set us free.
Yeah. That's good, Doc.
Still dealing with systems of oppression and racism currently, but God is enabling us to still survive. Why? Because God is a loyal leader. Yeah. He's a liberating lead. He's a loyal lead. But then here's the third thing, and I'm almost done. He's a lasting lead.
Yeah. That's good.
In other words, when he leads you, his leading will sustain. Are y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
The psalmist says in Psalm 139, if I make my bed in hell, now get this, he's not there as an inmate. But see, the devil is not in charge of hell, but he's the chief inmate. See, the Lord is the warden. He's got the keys. And the psalmist says, if I make my bed in hell, what I've discovered is even there shall thy hand lead me, and your right hand will uphold me. Because God is a lasting lead. No wonder the saints of antiquity sang that old hymn of the church, precious Lord, take my hand. Lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, and I am worn. Lead me on through the night, precious Lord, take my hand and lead when my way grows drear and the night draws near. Hold my hand, lead me on. That's I say, precious Lord, take my hand and lead me on. Because God is a lasting lead. He's a competent guy. He's a consistent guy. But third thing, and I'm done, God is a comforting God. May I say this to you? God's leading is always, you can quote me on this, God's leading is always right. God won't ever lead you to do anything or me to do anything that's contrary to his word. God won't ever lead you to do anything against another brother or sister in the fellowship. Because that's not how God operates. But then, may I say this? God won't ever lead you to be a hypocrite. God won't, in other words, God won't ever urge you, lead you to do one thing that ultimately turns out that you something else. You can't put that on. But the Lord told me. That was that Laura copying you. I can say that I'm from Fontaine. I know how it goes on sloppy copy. I know how it goes. But here's my point. God is a comforting God. Psalmist says, even though I walk through the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil. Why? Because you're with me. You're going to comfort me through the whole. Even though, now, verse 3 says, he restoreth my soul. The word restore has an athletic imagery of an athlete, particularly in track and field, of a runner that's running. And when fatigue hits them, they experience what's called having a monkey on their back. When the monkey gets on their back, they got to press through that time of difficulty to get what's called the second wind. The second wind is the same thing of restore or restoration. They get a restoration of energy, and they're able to continue on. So the psalmist says, God blows some fresh wind. When at times in this Christian race and our existence that life gets the best of me, God blows a fresh wind in me. Also has a produce imagery in that, or I like to explain it in the produce field, like if you would go to Walmart or Jovi's or Food Town, a big city, wherever you go, whatever that grocery store item is that you like to get on the shelf, when it is no longer on the shelf, what the stocker got to do is restore got to restore those items that have been taken down. And when God restores you, that's the same thing that God does. He puts back up something or someone that has fallen down. There have been some times, I'm sure you like me, have fallen down. But our God is still in the business of picking up those who fall and put us back. But the psalmist says there, he restoreth my soul. It is, he leadeth, he keeps leading me in the path of righteousness. Why? Because his name is on the line. It says, for his name's sake. He leadeth me. He continues, he keeps on consistently, competently, comfortingly, keeps on leading me in the path of righteousness, which literally just simply means in the right way. He leads me in the right way for his name's sake. He always does it. That's why I tell you that God's ways of leading are always right. Pay attention though to the grammar. He leads me in the right way always. Verse 4, even though I walk into the valley. King James says, yea, though I walk. That word for yea, that preposition for yea can be used interchangeably with even though, but, although, or however. So again, the last thing said in verse number 3 is, he leads me in the right way all the time. But I walk in the valley. He led me where he intended to be. However, I went where I wanted to go. God led me where purpose was designed for me to be. Although I wanted to go where I wanted to go to the golden nugget. Are y'all seeing what I'm saying?
Wow.
There are some times that we
dog.
put ourselves in valid situations because we do not follow the directives of God's leading. But here's the shout, church. The psalmist says, even though it might have been the case that I put myself in my own dark valley, what I discovered was I didn't have to get scared because I discovered that you were still right there with me. I wish I could find a witness that would get happy with me, that would cut loose with me, that would throw back your head and tell the Lord thank you, because you know there are some times that you went some places that God didn't tell you to go. You stayed there longer than you should have stayed. It cost you more than it should have paid, but thanks be unto God, he stayed there with you.
It's good, Doc.
He's there with me in dark places. He's there with me in devilish and dangerous places. He's there with me even in distracting places. He's still there with me. And the reason why he's there with you is to give you the comforting reassurance that you're going to make it through. Notice the psalmist says, yea, though I walk through the valley. You're not in here to stay, but you coming through it. You ought to look at a neighbor, and I know we're in a COVID climate, but you ought to just look at a neighbor and tell them you coming through it. It might look hard right now, but you're coming through it. You might be broke right now, but you're coming through it. We might be in a pandemic right now, but you're coming through it. You might be lonely right now, but you might be sick right now, but you're coming. Saints of antiquity said, let Jesus lead you. I'm gone. Let Jesus lead you. Let Jesus lead you all the way. all the way from earth to heaven.
Yeah. Your voice is changing, Doc.
Let Jesus lead you
Yeah.
all the way.
Yeah.
I used to hear the senior choir sing this song. Said, I'm free.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord. I'm free.
Yeah.
I'm no longer bound. And I got no more chains holding me.
Yeah.
But my soul is resting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a blessing.
Yeah.
Anybody can praise it with me. Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
Hallelujah, I'm free.
Yeah.
May I tell you, in times like these, you need a Savior.
Yeah.
In times like these, you need an anchor. Come on.
Yeah.
Be very sure. Be very sure that your anchor holds and grips the solid rock. This rock is Jesus. He is the one. This rock is Jesus. He's the only one. Be very sure. Be very sure that your anchor holds and grips the solid rock. Do you know him? Have you tried? Ain't he all right? His power is unabated. His wisdom is undiminished. His holiness, it is unsullied. His sovereignty, it is unquestioned. His authority, it is unmatched. His love is untainted. You know him, don't you? To the artist, Christ is altogether lovely. To the builder, he's the sure foundation. To the doctor, he's the great physician. Do you know him? My grandmother said he's a battle axe in the time of storm. And I just come by to let you know that our God is the kind of God that you can depend on to lead you from what you're going through to where you are. Dr. A. Lewis Patterson used to say it this way. Don't ever let your present location determine your ultimate destination, but just use that time as dedication, preparation, and consecration because God is preparing you for what he has prepared for you. In other words, though you might not be where you want to be yet, get ready for trying to get there. In other words, just because you don't have the job yet, start dressing like you got the job. Just because you don't have the car yet, start acting like you got the car. Just because you don't have the house yet, start living like you got the house. Because our God, he will lead you to the place where he intends for you to be. Can I ask you one question? Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Won't he do it? I'm gone tonight, but if you know that he will, and you're not too mean, and you're not afraid of who's sitting next to you, you're not ashamed at who's looking at you, if you know that your God is a God that will lead you, is a God that will guide you, let me hear you shout, yeah. Yeah! Yeah! Yes! Yes! Yes, he will. Yes, he will. You ask me how I know, because I've tried him for myself. If you don't mind, and I'm gone, y'all, why don't you look at somebody and encourage your neighbor and tell your neighbor, say neighbor, come on, talk to your neighbor, say neighbor. Come on, turn on your hooping voice and say neighbor. Come on, say it like me. Say neighbor. Say our God is an on-time God. It is no secret what God can do, what he's done for others. Yeah, the same thing. Yeah, the same thing. Yeah. He'll do it for you. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Say yeah. Say yeah. Yeah. I know it's all right. Let me serve notice to you today that no matter what it is you're going through, take this with me. God is able. He's able to guide you. He's able to keep you. He's able to protect you. He's able to preserve you. He's able, Paul says, to do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can ask or even think, according to the power that is at work within us. He's able, church. We serve an able God. We serve an able God. How to reach the masses, men of every birth, for an answer, Jesus gave the key. Said if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. All the world is hungry for the living word. Live the Savior might be hard, but lift him up for men to see. Trust him and do not doubt the words that he said. I'll draw all men unto me. Lift him up, lift him up. Still he speaks from eternity. Said if I be lifted up from the earth, I'll draw all men unto me. Father, we pray